If you're a person who enjoys Classic WoW, and more so, watching Classic WoW content creators, then I'm going to assume you've seen or heard about the massive influx of some of WoW's biggest creators who are jumping ship and giving old school RuneScape a try. And when you watch them, really watch them, it's not just the gameplay they're smiling about, it's the feeling. There's a charm to old school RuneScape that's very hard to replicate. It might feel slower, but it's more personal. The stakes aren't always high. The goals aren't always about chasing the next best gear score. It's about simply logging in, setting a small goal, and seeing yourself grow towards it day after day. It taps into that core feeling of what made MMORPGs feel magical in the first place. Community, progression, and a sense that your time spent in the world actually mattered. Even if the reward was just a new skill level or a few measly pieces of gold. And on the surface, it might just look like a bunch of tired, burnt out WoW veterans enjoying a breath of fresh air. But I think there's something deeper going on, something worth paying attention to. First off, I think this is a testament to show that a game doesn't need out of this world's graphics to be defined as good. It just needs to satisfy the wants and the needs of its player base. And what better way to do that than by simply asking the player base outright what they want or don't want. This is where I think the first lesson that old school RuneScape could teach Blizzard on how to approach Classic Plus truly lies. For those of you who don't know, old school's updates, outside of certain integrity changes such as a bug or exploit fix, are completely left into the hands of the community. This is done via an in-game polling system that requires 75% or more of community approval to be considered successful and be passed. Now obviously, with any democracy, there are going to be people unhappy about certain changes. This is true in something as small as a video game community, all the way up to nation and world level politics. I honestly believe it to be a better system than a bunch of disconnected developers blindly adding updates and changes in the hunt for larger profit margins. No system is ever going to be perfect, but I think old schools strikes a balance that other developers could learn a lot from. For those of us who were lucky enough to take part in WoW's limited time mode Season of Discovery over the last year, and got to see firsthand just the insane amount of people who were loving what I'll refer to as Diet Classic Plus, I believe it really showed just how much want and thirst there are among the community for a Classic Plus. Now I think we can all agree that although the Season of Discovery was great, and it brought forth so much life into the 20-year-old version of Azeroth, it wasn't exactly a play-by-play of what Classic Plus should probably be. Especially with things like broken class balance and the ridiculous power spikes some classes got as the time went on. Certain classes just ended up feeling so overpowered to what I would imagine a new timeline of vanilla WoW or Classic should feel like. But with all that being said, I'm just hopeful that Blizzard's eyes might have opened up a bit to just how overwhelmingly and positively these things were received by the community. They quite literally have a golden goose that is waiting to be hatched as long as they don't fumble the eggs. None of this is to say that the task in front of Blizzard is just going to be as simple as a one-to-one copy of old school RuneScape. While it's true that both games exist in the same overarching genre known as MMORPGs, they were built and are played in completely different ways. RuneScape was built with a horizontal progression in mind, and has held on strong to ensure that content that was created 10 plus years ago is still viable and relevant today. Which personally, I honestly believe it to be the far superior mindset when it comes to MMOs. Whereas World of Warcraft took a more vertical progression system, with the releases of patches and expansions which completely nullify all of your character's progress up to that point, creating essentially an endless hamster wheel of a grind in an attempt to hold onto the player base's subscription. I feel this means that Classic Plus will have a harder time trying to pave its way into a successful future. Now what I think they should try and steer away from is immediately trying to create a new expansion of sorts in some faraway lands, just in order to try and generate sales. The majority of people's favorite parts of Classic WoW are traversing the world and seeing how full of life the two original zones are. There are still so many things that could be expanded upon in these zones to keep players satiated for a very long time. Classic Plus should most likely be treated like a marathon and not a cash grab sprint. Blizzard could simply start off with a much desired, better class balancing from vanilla and open up exploration in these unfinished zones such as Hyjal or Grimpatal, and in my opinion, this alone would likely be very successful right at launch. Now, I do not want this video to come off as that I'm saying Jagex has all the answers and haven't had their fair share of missteps along the way. In fact, the very reason that old school RuneScape was created in the first place was due to the huge disconnect between Jagex and its player base. With the 2012 release of Evolution of Combat, which more or less felt like an attempt to make RuneScape more like World of Warcraft and other MMOs of the time, the beauty of the game as we knew it had been lost. It started to feel like a cheap mobile knockoff of World of Warcraft, stripped of everything that made RuneScape RuneScape. And I believe the dwindling player base and Jagex's profit losses had shown that exponentially. Now fast forward to today, and the overwhelming feeling from the community is that the player base is living in what could be referred to as the golden years of old school RuneScape. It just goes to show that consistency is the key to success in any aspect of life, whether it be a business venture or personal growth. And if a business is to succeed over a long period of time, then it has to appeal to its client base. And that will be the mindset that will be required of Blizzard if they are going to be able to call Classic Plus a success and not a failed experiment 2 or 5 or even 10 years down the road. But here's the thing. Even if Blizzard nails the class balance, takes player feedback seriously, and avoids the temptation to rush out some random expansions, none of it is going to matter if Classic Plus doesn't know its own identity and who it's catering towards. It needs more than just a flashy looking roadmap. It needs a soul. Vanilla WoW wasn't just great because of how the classes played or how the zones were laid out. It was the feeling, the mystery, the danger, the slower pace that made even a green piece of gear feel like a win. It was a world that felt like it existed whether you were logged in or not. And if Blizzard doesn't hold on to that essence, if they let Classic Plus become just another seasonal experiment or some marketing gimmick, then I think we're just going to be right back to where we started. A world with no clear identity, just kind of chasing subscription numbers. What Classic Plus needs is a vision, a purpose, not something built for Twitch metrics or earnings, but something built for the people who fell in love with Azeroth all those years ago. People who remember logging in just to explore, to get lost, not to solely optimize and focus on gear score or a bunch of daily quests. And that's one thing that I really respect about what Jagex has done with old school RuneScape. They didn't just preserve a game, they preserved a feeling. And every update they make is done through that lens. I believe that's the mindset Blizzard needs to adopt and start to ask the hard questions. What are we trying to protect, and how do we preserve that integrity while also creating something new? What makes Classic worth continuing, and what do we need to let go of to keep that magic alive? I truly do believe that Classic Plus can be an overwhelming success that breathes new life into the world of Azeroth, but it must be planned out methodically and it must be planned strategically if it's going to survive the test of time. Treat it as its own world, a passion project built by devs who still remember the magic of vanilla. And I just hope that they can let themselves be inspired by and take note of all the ups and downs that old school RuneScape has experienced to get to the point where it is today. And I implore any of the content creators that have even a shred of connections to Blizzard that have switched over to old school recently, hopefully give them some insight into how much fun they've had with their time in Gielinor and all of the wonderful things the game has that could be referenced or expanded upon in Azeroth. Now please, let me know down in the comments what you would like to see with Classic Plus. And if you've recently made the switch back or to old school RuneScape for the first time, I would genuinely like to hear all of your comments below on your experience. And as always, this is Deadman's, and I'll see you all in the next video.